few episodes ago, a viewer named Luca left a suggestion in the comments that I immediately knew I had to run with. At first I thought it would become a standalone ride near the Lost Woods in Kokiri Forest, but as usually happens with this park, it very quickly turned into something much bigger. That single ride has now grown into an entire sub-area, giving this previously isolated section of Hyrule Park a much more intentional purpose. Instead of feeling like a dead end, it's now a meaningful passage through the park, giving guests a reason to explore this area on their way to somewhere else. And since opening it, I've already noticed a lot more guests coming through here than ever before. So in this episode, I'm going to show you how Luca's suggestion completely changed the direction of this area. Hey guys, welcome into Hyrule Park, and a very bare spot of Hyrule Park that we have spent no time really. This is where I started the build, so this is where I started the entrance to Deku Palace. It's kind of how the ride began, the genesis of this ride, if you will. If you're a Zelda fan, then you obviously know that this is inspired directly from Majora's Mask. Originally, the plan for the Dark Ride was a fairly straightforward kind of journey through the southern swamp and into here, Deku Palace. Obviously, this is just the basic kind of formation of it. I'm just trying to kind of get my bearings, just kind of making sure I have at least like the color scheme down in kind of like the sizing and scale that I want compared to the log flume ride that I'm using. What kind of became like a microcosm for this entire episode, it didn't take long for this to grow into something a lot more. I eventually added another section and a completely new ending to this ride, or at least plans for it. It's not just Deku Palace, it's now kind of like the whole sequence in Majora's Mask. So you're gonna go through Southern Swamp, you're gonna go through Deku Palace, you're gonna go through Woodfall Temple, and that's kind of the whole ride. But in terms of building the gates themselves, like this is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. A lot of it was really just about getting the color scheme right and figuring out how to approximate all of the details from those wonderfully janky pixelated N64 reference images. The one part that did give me some trouble though was this monstrosity here that I started. But there's this like giant tree trunk slash coral. I'm pretty sure it's a tree trunk. I don't know why it would be coral, but to me it looks like coral. Anyways, there's this giant tree trunk in back of the gates, which I think is above like kind of the main kind of central room in that palace. Anyways, the build of this was kind of not great. As you can see the stage here, I was just kind of messing around with what I could do. I eventually do figure it out, and I think I got it pretty close. We'll take a look at that later on. But yeah, this is kind of like the first kind of go at it. And initially I thought I was going to build just like this element of this ride, and then I have two other ideas kind of up my sleeve for a couple other projects, and I was going to start those too. And I was going to leave it up to you guys for which one to go with next, based on kind of like the teaser builds. But I got so sucked into this one and I enjoyed it so much, I just want to see it through to the end. So you guys don't get a choice. You're just going to watch me build this ride. Anyways, let's just jump into stage one. All right, so this is really where this build kind of takes off. This is where I started to realize I'm going to make like a whole kind of sub area that's going to play off of, if you can see here, Kokiri Forest, and then which is adjacent to Great Deku Tree in Lost Woods, which I still have a lot of work to do. But anyways, at first this area was kind of like a dead end. Like nobody really came back here, and I don't blame them. All that was here was just this coaster and kind of like a food court area. So what I was thinking was like I have this open area here and it would pretty easily cut into kind of like the back here. So I figured why not make it its own area and kind of combine Faron Woods and Southern Swamp as kind of like a transition area into Kokiri Forest and out of Kokiri Forest. So this section here I started during one of my live streams. So I want to quickly shout out to everyone that has been showing up, chatting, and kind of throwing out ideas as I build. It's been really fun having kind of like that live feedback. It's created kind of an interesting dynamic, and it's genuinely helpful. So I appreciate that. So I'll definitely be doing more of the streams going forward, so stay tuned for those. But back to the build. So the idea here was basically to make this transition area interesting and meaningful. Like it wasn't just a pathway behind the Temple of Time. The goal here was actually to make sure you don't realize you're going past the Temple of Time, outside the fact that it's right here and it's a huge Temple of Time. But like as you're crossing through here, you shouldn't be able to like notice like, oh, there's the Temple of Time back here. Really wanted this to be kind of like its own area, this own sub area of Kokiri Forest in the Lost Woods. So whereas the ride is really just dedicated to Majora's Mask, and even there's a flat ride that I put in here that's a Majora reference as well. For the sake of getting more games in the series in here in this park, I thought it would be cool and appropriate to have like a Faron Woods transition, because I think obviously it lends itself to the forest vibe. Let's jump ahead a little bit. So this is kind of like the finished entrance to this area. I made a custom sign, obviously. I kind of reoriented this dead tree here. I added the fog for the swamp vibes. Like I just said, you can kind of see the ruins peeking through, but I think this does the trick, because what I have plans for is to kind of have like Zonai ruins, or at least a nod to the Zonai ruins, because I don't know how close I can get with the items in this game. So I think that kind of lends itself nicely, and you can't really tell this is the Temple of Time back here, so it's just kind of like ruins in the woods, which is the vibe I'm going for. But the last thing I'll say about this kind of transition area, my goal was to not have it be such a jarring, and I say that a lot, but it's an important part, I think, of making these big parks, is like the transitions need to be seamless, and I didn't want to have this jarring like pathway through the woods where, you know, I have like Zora's domain over here, I have the Temple of Time here, I have Dompe's graveyard and Kokiri Forest, or not Kokiri Forest, sorry, Kakariko Village here. So it's a bunch of different kind of like environments kind of all close to each other, and then I have this woods forest vibe / swamp vibe kind of cutting through the middle of everything. So I really wanted it to blend nicely. Like I think I have the start of a nice kind of blending here, and I can blend back out into Zora's domain. But anyways, yeah, let's jump ahead again. I just wanted to show this off because I'm really happy with how this came out, actually, especially with this lighting, man. Look at this, freaking gorgeous. So nice to look at, beautiful. All right, so this is kind of like the second stage. This is where I started flattening out this ground here and putting in the swamp. The goal with this stage really was mainly just to make sure I could actually fit the ride in here and make it like long enough to get all of the kind of theming elements and scenes that I want to in this ride, and still have it kind of weave in and out of Kokiri Forest, which is where it most prominently is kind of weaving in and out of. Obviously is right next to it. So if we zoom out a bit, obviously it starts in the swamp, and then it's really going to go through a lot of different transitions in terms of like the dark ride elements when I get there. I think I put I know I put the palace gates here, and then I'm thinking having the Woodfall Temple be like the second half, kind of like the last third of the ride. Maybe it's really like the finale of the ride. You go through the temple, and then you get spit back out here. You get a nice kind of guest interaction element, the splash zone over this bridge. So yeah, that's kind of like the biggest part of the stage, is again just making sure my idea is gonna fit where I wanted it to fit. And honestly, it fit pretty perfectly, especially this, like I said, this little ending here with the splashdown on the bridge, I think was perfect. Like I really wanted that element at the end, and it fit perfectly. Let's jump ahead a little bit and we'll talk about the boarding station. All right, here's kind of like my first go at the boarding station. All of this mostly stays, except I add more detail here later, and then I fix this situation here. If you haven't played the game, this might look a little ridiculous in terms of how I have the roof, but I assure you, and I will throw up an image to prove my point, but that is how the roof is in the game. But this is another one I did on stream, and special shout out to Toby and Pedro, who helped me add some color to this. They had the idea of adding some color instead of originally I had it just like all kind of like the dark green wood. But adding the color, I think, really helped down here. I'll kind of zip through the boarding station because there's a couple different iterations in terms of the queue too. So let's jump ahead really quick. I did fix this so it looks a bit cleaner. Again, I assure you, this is how the roof is in the game. I know it looks ridiculous, at least it does to me. It looks kind of like an owl. But I cleaned it up. I made these a little bit bigger. I added the door that they have in the game up there. But this is like iteration 1. And when I panned back after I built this, I was like, this takes way too much away from the swamp, which is what I want this focus to be. I want there to be like a view of the swamp. Instead of just talking about it, let me show you really quick. Before I reveal the final kind of queue layout here, if you're enjoying this video, if you're enjoying this series, if you made it this far in this video, I would really appreciate it if you subscribed, left a like, left a comment. It would mean a lot to me. It really means a lot to see comments come through. And hopefully, you know, people are enjoying this. Anyways, back to the build. So yeah, this is the story of a girl. If you don't know that song, that makes no sense. But yeah, this is the new queue line. Like I was saying, I didn't want this to be taken away. Obviously this isn't finished up, but you can kind of get the idea of what I'm going for in terms of like the swamp elements within the water, and really just having a clear view of the boarding station and the waterfront. So I moved it over here. It just looks a lot better. And also, instead of using like fence pieces that the game gives you, I made my own custom fence, because this is also getting a little messy in terms of just like having all of those pieces. I mean, it still is kind of messy, but I think this looks a little bit cleaner. All I did was use like a grid fence and some rope and created my own fence. I just think it looks a little bit cleaner. And then I created these kind of lampposts that fit the vibe too. I don't think I have the lighting really set up yet at this stage, but you can kind of see, I mean, it's kind of set up, at least for this part of the queue. Like I've said in the past, I'm really trying to be more conscious about like sight lines and stuff when I'm doing these projects. So that was one big thing I wanted to avoid, was again taking up too much of this kind of like foreground of the swamp area. So just move the queue over here, cleaned up the fencing a little bit, and voila, we get a cool little sight line down to the swamp. Let's jump ahead again, and we'll talk about the other elements of this area. All right, as you can see, I did a lot of work between these stages. Oh, there you go. You see the splashdown effect here that gets up to the bridge. Which I think is really cool. I really was happy with how that turned out. But yeah, as you can see, I did a lot to this waterfront area. Again, not trying to take away from the swamp itself, so just having like this kind of weaving path down to this restaurant down here. I thought that was a cool effect. I really wish we could have different tables that can be connected to the restaurant, because this wasn't totally the vibe I was going for. I probably have to mess with the colors of these tables just a little bit to get it to kind of be a cohesive thing within the restaurant. But yeah, I guess before we move on to that, let's talk about the queue. Or not the queue, we just talked about the queue, but the ride sign. Not totally sure if I'm gonna keep it this way, but I kind of really like it. At least the idea of it. I'm not sure if it really kind of gets across what I was going for, but I kind of like it. And it's not just a generic sign. It's really kind of designed, which I'm trying to do more of as well. So yeah, I put this Vista Point. Again, this was a suggestion on stream. I think it was Toby. But basically, guests stand here and they take selfies in front of the boarding station, which I think is a cool touch. I don't know if you can time Vista Points with like interactions with the ride. Probably not. But having like a Vista Point here and then interacting with the splashdown there, that was good timing. But yeah, let's talk about the restaurant really quick. What I envisioned here was, obviously I needed a way for the guests to exit the ride and get back to the main part of this area. So what I did was, one, I created a cut through out to Kokiri Forest, so it also serves as like a throughway from Kokiri Forest to this restaurant. But as I was doing it, I was like, it obviously would be really cool to have the bridge across. That was like one of the original things I wanted to do when I put the ride here, was have a bridge across the flume. And then I was kind of debating, like, do I want just a stairway up to this level, or do I want to put something here? And I opted to put something here because I thought it was a cool kind of opportunity to have like a waterfront restaurant. I built this kind of swampy shack thing as the restaurant facility. So yeah, this is kind of a cool little hangout area next to the water, and I'm starting to mess with the night lighting as well, so you can kind of see the ambiance from at least this restaurant patio area, deck area to the queue, and lighting up the boarding station as well. So starting to get that, and then the sign too. So starting to get that under control. And then real quick, let's just pop over here and look at the flat ride that I placed in here, because I obviously needed more than just a pathway to one ride. Like, I felt like it would be a missed opportunity to just have that and nothing else. So I threw a flat ride in here. And my idea was, like, I needed to have some sort of spinning flat ride if I was going to put one in here, because of the whole mechanic in Majora's Mask where Link pops out of a flower and kind of floats down when he has the Deku Scrub mask on. So that's kind of a play on that. And then, like I mentioned earlier, what I wanted to do was kind of mash up the Southern Swamp and the Faron Woods from Breath of the Wild. From what I remember from playing Breath of the Wild, Faron Woods had a lot of the Zonai ruins scattered throughout the woods. So I figured I'd throw some ruins here to kind of like center this, and then the ruins are, holy crap, look at how fast that guy's running. So I figured it would be kind of like an easy transition again from more of the heavy Zonai technology. Look at these people run, man. Do I have this on fast forward? Oh, I had it on fast forward. Like, why are they running so weird and quickly? But yeah, so I thought it would be a good kind of transition from Faron Woods and the forest kind of vibes into the southern swamp. I think it kind of meshed things together pretty well and allowed for that transition. But let's jump ahead just one more time before we get to the finished product to kind of see what I was doing with the flat ride and the queue. All right, as you can see, I added a lot more kind of character to the flat ride. Before it was just the flat ride colored to kind of like a flower and flower petals. But I added this parade float piece. It's kind of like marbly, but also with this color kind of resembles some swampy areas, you know? And then I use these rose or flower pieces sunk into the floor. I would have preferred to have like a flat piece because it is sort of unrealistic to have the guests like jump and climb over these to get into the ride. But I think it fit better than any other piece that I was testing it with. So I opted to just go for it. I need to mess with the kind of like the ankles here so it's not sunk into the ground too much. I guess having it more like that would look better from above, but again, like when the guests go over, they're kind of like walking over this. But I guess you kind of have to suspend realism for that effect. So pretty happy with that. And I was really happy how the queue line came out too. But I have some scattered ruins around, some swamp elements, and just a short windy queue path to the line. Some kind of mixing and matching of stone wall curb ideas, and then again going with this custom fencing, and yeah, just having a lot of overgrowth, a lot of ground cover to kind of fit the swamp idea that I'm going for. And then the last thing to talk about is this sign now, because I'm really happy with this sign. I think it fits the vibe of the flat ride. Like it's kind of like a fun kind of family flat ride rather than like a thrill ride for adults. So that's the flat ride, Deku Bloom. Again, like I said at the intro, like look how many people are coming through here. I think the sneaky best part of this whole thing was kind of like the pathing system and how much I kind of leveled up there in terms of what this was before, because before it really was just like you cross the bridge and you have like this scene, so there was really no reason for people to come back here unless, like I said, they wanted to ride this coaster or grab a bite to eat over here. So this really kind of opens things up, and I can already tell like a lot more guests come back in this area, which is cool to see, because it's kind of a bummer when like I spend so much time on some of these builds in like the Deku Tree restaurant and nobody's over here. I guess that's because all I really have are bathrooms, the restaurant, and a shrine info kiosk. But I'm getting off topic and I'm venturing away from the point of this episode. I really am happy with how this is turning out. I'm gonna jump into a little bit of a tour with all of this finished up to completion. So yeah, let's jump into guest mode here and check that out. All right guys, here we are on the outskirts of the finished Faron Woods area. At least mostly finished. I won't say 100% because there are little kind of gaps here on the sides of the path that I want to fill in, either with ruins or with more foliage, that sort of thing. As you can see here, I still have a little bit of work to do in terms of the fencing. But I did start to theme up this tunnel that transitions out of the southern swamp area, Faron Woods area, back into Kokiri Forest. Just continuing on with the Zonai ruins type of deal from the flat ride area. And then the other kind of bigger thing that I added, in the last stage, this left side of Southern Swamp, which is completely bare. I hadn't done anything with it. I added a couple things here. So first, the photo kiosk that will eventually, once the update comes out, will be synced up to the Flume ride. You know, I figured that it would be a good opportunity to try this out. I've never actually used the photo kiosk before. But yeah, we don't have the ability to sync it up to a log Flume ride just yet, but from what I understand, that's part of the update that's coming out in a week or so. So I already have the photo set up. I already have the trigger set up, so it's all ready to go. Just waiting for the update to be able to trigger it and sync it up to this stand here. So we'll see how that goes. Then the other addition here is this little Southern Swamp supply store. This isn't an actual store that you can the guests will go in and purchase anything, but it is a store that creates like immersion, and it fills in this area here. It's a tiny little plaza on the outskirts of the Southern Swamp. I built a little throughway path that goes back out to the to the right of the entrance or to the left, depending on which way you're thinking about it. But it's between the Faron Woods entrance and Zora's domain. So just another path out there. But yeah, I really liked this building. I thought it was kind of a cool way to incorporate both the Zonai technology with the, I didn't mention this, but I added the Viking pieces that kind of have those lettering, glowing letters on them, because it kind of evokes the Zonai technology if you think about it. But then the other part of this is the kind of shack swamp element to it, and it's kind of just, you know, combined and mashed up together to kind of give nods to both sides of the inspiration and references that I was going for this area. Some of this stuff I got from the workshop. I'll leave the creator description in there. Like the mannequins I got from the workshop. Some of these setups I got from the workshop. I was just too lazy to pile these on. And there's a lot of people in the workshop, like I always say, that are super creative and talented and do a lot of work to do it. So I decided to take a shortcut with this part. Like I said in the beginning, this is a lot more kind of populated in terms of guests exploring and interacting. I love this little lookout here. Kind of, you can see the swamp, you can see the restaurant here. It's just really cool. Like I said, really happy with how this came out. Like, I think this is one of my better areas, and I always say that. I know I do, but I feel like I'm just keep getting better. So I'm gonna pat myself on the back for this one. And thank you to you guys for the comments, and Luca especially for the idea to do this. As you can see, and like I said in the beginning, this kind of took a life of its own. It started as just the log flume ride, and then created this little sub area of Kokiri Forest. So yeah, really happy with it. Really pumped to have you guys leave your suggestions and ideas and stuff. They're always really fun to look at and think about and see how I can implement them into the park. So keep those coming. In terms of what's coming next, I'll obviously be working on this ride and the dark ride elements to it, the actual on-ride experience, since I haven't touched any of that just yet. I really don't have like a distinct, fully fledged out plan for kind of like the sequence of events that's going to happen on the ride itself. I have some ideas here and there that I want to implement, but how to connect them all and kind of how to go about it on the ride, I'm not totally sure. I want to build a bunch of animatronics. Like I have this Deku scrub that I can do something with, hopefully animate to kind of shoot something at you. And then they have the guards at the Deku Palace gates. So that's one opportunity. We'll see what else I come up with. If you guys have any ideas, I'm all ears. I would love to get some thoughts there. But yeah, in terms of what is coming next on the channel, I will be live streaming for sure, because like I said, that's been fun and it's been productive and it's been helpful to kind of get the live feedback and ideas on those streams. And then next episode, I briefly mentioned earlier in the video that I have a couple other ideas already kind of cooking in my head. So I'll probably get those out and start building those, and whether or not I make like 2 separate episodes or I start with just kind of like a teaser build of both of them, and then I leave it up to you guys to tell me which one I should go with. That might be an option. But either way, I'll probably have another video out in 2 weeks. I'm thinking live streaming next week for sure. I usually am on like mid to late afternoon East Coast time, US. On the weekends, I'll try to jump on here and there if I can. But yeah, just stay tuned for that if you want to join and kind of help build and throw some ideas out there. Yeah, it's been fun. If you've made it this far and listened to my rambling, I appreciate you. Leave a comment, say hello. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any ideas. If you have any dark ride ideas for this ride, for sure, throw them out there in the comments. And until then, I will see you guys in the next one and see you guys in the next live stream.